So I've read the patch notes. I wanted to give my opinion with every single change that they are going to implement for the July 25th. Of course, in EU it will be the 26th because it is on a Wednesday, and I am actually super glad of the changes. So I'm Thogray, I'm making PvP guides, PvP videos, PvP actually everything, and yeah, if you want to look those kinds of videos and you want to watch those videos, please do subscribe to the channel. But let's head right in on the PvP and also PvE changes. But I would say and heavily say that most changes are actually like PvP oriented. Now, blood decay, all ability damage increased by 10%. There is a video of mine that is going to come up, I don't know when, but I wanted to make a video about blood decay in RPGs and just in PvP in general. I think there is a place for blood decay somewhere, somehow, as a support DPS, but I don't think it's like a very strong one. But I think it can be fun for a lot of people that want some changes here and there and want to troll sometimes. Gordon getting nerfed on their absorb shield on Earthstalk Fury, so that's a nerf. Augmentation Evoker actually changed, so you will see a lot less effectiveness on the support-ish playstyle of Augmentation Evoker, and they are actually trying to build it more around DPS, I would say, and damage. So they are improving the eruption damage, they are actually improving the self-damage of Airborne Might for the Evokers. They're also going to nerf a few things. So the effectiveness when not in a raid, it's also nerfed from Ebon Might and Breath of Eons. And just in general, like, all those changes are pretty much a nerf, except for the damage proportion that the Evoker can bring themselves. So I think it's a good change, although I think World of Warcraft right now is not really ready to get like full-on support DPS classes and specs, because there's just not a lot of variety, so you will only end up with Augmentation Evoker, and I guess maybe one day there will be like a support playstyle, a support role that you can actually apply, but right now it's not possible because you only have one spec realistically that can do that, and even Shadow Priests that are like one of those support DPSs that actually do a lot of DPS and give PI to other people and to themselves as well. I think Augmentation Evoker is like way further into that timeline, I would say, for support DPSs to be existing in this current meta. Maybe next expansion they will introduce more specs to more classes, but we will see. Anyways, Hunters getting buffed on Barb Shot, Cobra Shot, and Kill Shot. The one thing that you should notice is Barb Shot and Kill Shot for PvP. Kill Shot doesn't do that much damage because there are no modifiers towards Kill Shot. Your mastery doesn't improve your Kill Shot damage as well, like for example Survival or Hunter does. So it still is a good change, but it's not going to like make you 100k Kill Shot, because that's not going to happen. But the Barb Shot getting 15% increase is actually very nice. You will see some meaningful damage dot wise. I think there is like a playstyle that was season 1 that was actually around dots and like kill commands. Now it will come back because of those buffs and also the unnerfs coming into the PvP section. Marksmanship Hunter gets more AoE damage with trick shot, aim shot, and rapid fire with ricochets. Now it will change something in PvP, but it's not going to be like massive. I don't think that will make them change from tiers, I would say, on a tier list. Survival Hunter getting more damage is actually a bit more surprising, especially in like not a PvE only change. It's affecting also PvP, this one. And Survival Hunter actually does a lot of damage. I think the problem of a Survival Hunter is mostly like lying in the hands of a Survival Hunter and the survivability of a Survival Hunter. I think the damage proportions are very high, and I think that will and could tip over Survival Hunter into a different tier, especially in my tier list. A lot of people are like actually debating to put them like on the same tier as Unholy Decay because of the damage that they can actually provide. And in this current meta, Survival Hunter actually does huge amount of damage versus classes, and AoE wise they're also doing some good damage as well. So again, I think there is like a place where Survival Hunter could be like super strong, but I think it's like a mechanical spec, and it's very mechanical. It's not like you have like a rotation going on and you have to play around the rotation. It's like really you have to know your awareness of your situations, your awareness of your distances, your awareness of your positioning, your awareness of your defensive, your offensive burst, your offensive capacities, and then all of this combining and you become a big max, for example. But anyways, that's more or less my take. I think it's going to be very strong. Monks getting buffs. I'm not. They are reducing the damage of Brewmaster, but it's like AoE, so I don't think it's going to affect PvP at all. I think it's more of a PvE change. Windwalker getting a buff on Rising Sun Kick. I mean, it's going to be hitting for a lot. Blackout Kick also increased, and from a lot of like PvPing I actually did. Blackout Kick actually is like top 3 damage dealing ability over a course of a match, I think. If it's not ending like in the first few seconds, of course. So 10% of that is going to be pretty significant. And Tiger Palm, since a lot of Windwalkers actually take all the Tiger Palm modifiers on the trees, it could actually hit for, I think with the 15% increase, maybe 50k. So it's something that's going to be pretty noticeable. You should remember 50k, it is equal to, let's say, like overpower from Arms Warriors, for example. And that's something that you should keep in mind, because Tiger Palm is pretty much like a true builder. It's not really something you want to use to do damage, and if your true builder is actually doing some alright damage, it means that everything in the kit is going to be enhanced because of it. So I think Windwalker is going to be very close to being the best melee. A lot of people are like debating that unholy DK is like god tier, which is in my opinion not the case. I already made tier lists about that. I do think Windwalker is very much threading into that category of best melee right now, except all the changes that will come for a few specs. So I'm going to be excited to talk about that. Protection Paladin, all ability damage increased by 8%. I don't know how much it can actually affect PvP. I think the problem is with Protection Paladin is they get by doing some wogs, and it's pretty heavy. I think just because of those changes from mana and how it works for Protection Paladin, they cannot really play the role they had before. Now, am I happy about it or am I not happy about it? To be honest, in my world, I would like to have all specs being viable somehow, some way, even tank specs. The problem is they have difficulties with making tank specs not obnoxious whenever it's too good, and they have problems making tank specs not bad whenever they are actually a bit less meta. And right now it's either they are D tier, or if they are broken, they're going to be A tier, S tier. There's no in between. There's not going to be, oh, this tank spec is meh, but you can make it work. It's like C or B tier. You play it. If you're very good at it, you're going to make it work. If you're very bad at it, you're not going to make it work. Right now, it's like really black and white. And it should actually be more of a gray area for every single spec. But that's my opinion. I'm coming from also Warhammer Online, Dark Age of Camelot, where tank specs and tank specializations and tank classes and whatever had a place in PvP without being like super obnoxious, right? Like it was needed, especially for open world PvP. And right now, I think with arenas, it's actually very hard to make space for tanks without like eclipsing those DPSs. But that's my opinion again. I think that's why Battlegrounds should be the most competitive mode. Of course, I'm an arena guy, but I think like purely from game design, I think arena is like restricting a lot of specs whenever it's like something very meta. That's my opinion. Decreased luminous barrier absorption is competing with barrier, so dome. So you realistically never take that. But if it's like that good, maybe there's a place for that. But right now, dome is pretty much what you want in PvP. Nerfs for Shadow Priest on AoE, and more or less no changes for the damaging abilities, because it's only applying in PvE. You have Prayer of Manning actually costing now a lot of mana, so if they're playing that in PvP, they're going to get pretty quickly. Power Word Life, if they play that as well, is now going to cost some substantial mana, so maybe they will not have the mana to actually cast it, and renew as well. But that's actually very big for as Shadow Priest. It's fine. I think those nerfs are very fair, especially in PvP. In PvE, I don't know how potent those nerfs are, but in PvP, those nerfs are going to be noticeable. Restoration Shaman getting 5% more healing. That's going to be adding up. I think in PvP, Restoration Shaman actually are not doing that bad right now. I know I made a tier list like not long ago, but since the Holy Paladin actually got like in line with mana, I do feel like the healing specs that are actually more like dampening and that you are actually going to be more healthy mana wise are going to thrive in this meta right now. If you cannot one-shot someone, you have to dampen him, and how do you dampen? By winning on mana, and I think Restoration Shaman actually can win on mana most matchups. I think even all matchups really, and that's what's count. And if your mana is like, if your healing is increased, it means that you need less mana to actually expand to have the same healing. So it's a win-win. And also the range of restorative mists heals from ascendance is now 40 yards. Restoration Shamans is like a special healer where you kind of want to be still close, because you can always link, or you want to actually put pressure on the other healer by doing a hex, for example. So you don't want to be too far from the action, but that gives you some incentive to actually pillar hug if you have to. But the initial burst healing is still going to be 20 yards. All ability damage increased by 7% for Protection Warrior. Now, that's also something I want to talk about. If Protection Warrior actually like can be competitive in the damage proportions, there is some playstyles that can work, I would say, in arenas. I think it's one of those tank specs where you can actually make it work in arenas, but it's only about the damage that it is actually going to have to be competitive, or else you're going to be just like even worse than a dampening spec. You're not going to dampen at all because their damage proportions are way too low. But having more damage means that you have more burst, which you can actually make it up with the actual class and spec differences with other specs. So I don't know how 7% can affect all the things going on, but it could make them actually somewhat something in arenas or in BGs. But now, again, you know me, tank specs right now, they're not that good. If you want to push anything, don't play tank specs right now. Yes, I would like to see a sword and board DPS spec one day, like a gladiator spec from WoD, but I don't think it's going to happen right now anytime soon, especially since PvE still exists and those specs always thrive somehow, some way in PvE, and they don't want to have like a situation where like tank specs are the better DPSs. That's not going to be happening, I think. Now, onto the PvP changes, and I would say that Blizzard is actually doing a huge job with this class tuning incoming. And the good thing is, it's not done. On Monday, you will have even further details or changes on the updates. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what Monday will bring. Personally, I will make a video about it as well. And I'm actually excited to like look forward to PvP changes. Again, I think the changes that they actually did from now on, and still with all the section of PvP, is going to be pretty good. And there is, I think, a huge swing in balance. I don't think in RBGs, because I think RBGs is like a lot different than arenas. In arenas, like even the smallest nerfs or buffs can change a lot of things. So now let's see the balance changes for PvP, right? So balanced druid get nerfed on their full moon, new moon, and half moon by 20%. You should also remember how it works: new moon, half moon, full moon. If new moon is nerfed, half moon is even more nerfed, and full moon is even more nerfed. You will see once you're going to get hit by a full moon, it's like multiplicative with each other, right? So if it's nerfed by 20% on like across the board for new moon, half moon, full moon, it will be even more the case once you are like at half moon and full moon. The baseline is new moon, and it will get add up half moon, new moon, full moon. So if it's 20% nerfed on a new moon, it will be even more nerfed on half moon, and even more nerfed on full moon. I don't know if it's really that case. Normally it should be, because it's like multiplicative with each other, but again, I think it's going to be a good nerf. Again, that's not the only thing that makes Balanced Druid very strong, but it's one of the things that makes it very scary in arenas. Like, if you get cycloned at the wrong time and someone is casting full moon and there's no interrupt, no macro CC to stop that, you're going to have a lot of damage to heal, and sometimes it's lethal. So Wotlk Adept, now PvP talent, is now reduced by 10%. The cast time for Cyclone. What is 5% though? I think that's not good, really good. It's still something. I don't think it, like, right now I have the case where Cyclone is too fast casted, because that's not going to happen anymore. But I think the combination of Alkin Adept with high winds, which is now nerfed by 15%, which is a godsend. Also for 3 seconds, so it's going to be pretty useful. I don't think you're going to play that anymore. 15% is not too much. And 3 seconds is basically like one cast. Like, I would say a cast and then a GCD of that, like, I guess it's 2 casts. I think 2 casts of like a spell, like a healing spell, for example, or a damaging thing. I think it's going to be alright. I don't think it's going to be black taking anymore. I think there are other PvP tons that are quite interesting. What I would like to see, again, I think it's not popular take. I don't think it's a hot take, to be honest. Starfall, I want to see it come back, because the playstyle of Boomkin is now really revolving around Star Surge, which again I can understand, but it's something you cannot really stop, and it has no really negative effects, while Starfall has a negative effect by breaking CC, while Star Surge doesn't really break any CC, so yeah. I think that nerf is pretty good. Now let's see how they're going to do. I don't want Bounce Druid to be D tier as well. I think God tier Bounce Druid is very annoying for the meta, while for example God tier Arms Warrior is a bit less annoying for meta, because there's a lot of counters towards an Arms Warrior by just kiting, and there is kiting possibilities, right? A Bounce Druid is very hard to actually stop, because they have like 3 schools, they have like fast cast, and often a lot of instants. It's like the same as a Destruction Warlock being God tier. It's like very annoying for people to deal with. I am a Destruction Warlock player, so I can understand that I would love that, but I know that the whole meta doesn't really love those instant cast, triple schools, like casters to be like God tier. It just shapes the meta towards a place that a lot of people do not really like, especially healers, to be honest. Embrace now increases damage of Wrath or Starfire by 15%, it was 20%. It's a 5% nerf, I don't think it's like that much. It will not affect that much. Augmentation Evoker actually got nerfed on their healing and got buffed on their damage. Eruption got nerfed in PvP combat, but it's like offsetting with the PvE changes. It's overall a buff. The increase of the Evoker's damage is no longer 40% more effective in PvP combat, because it's also offsetting the changes for PvE. Upheaval actually got a 10% buff, so it's already hitting for a lot, so good luck to a lot of people getting one-shotted by it, but that's pretty much the only spell that actually can one-shot for Evokers, for Augmentation Evokers. And the damage bonus from Tectonic Locus is now reduced by 70%. All healing is now reduced by 10%. And also the Dream Projection healing is reduced by 25%, so it's even more than 25%, since it's a aura nerf on healing. Observation effect also is not going to get nerfed by the healing done, so it's going to be even more than 30% reduced by in PvP combat. So you are going to be more killable. You will be feeling a lot less tanky, and I don't think you're going to be taking that much in support as a support DPS anymore. I think they are, if they were for me God tier with those nerfs, I think they are at least falling 2 full tiers, especially in Soul Shuffle, where you have also high dampening, so those healing nerfs are going to feel even more. But in trees as well, I think if you cannot really buff well enough anymore, because it's also nerfed in PvE and also in PvP, but also you don't heal that much anymore, you are less tanky, your Boarding Flame thing is now 3 seconds instead of 6 seconds. Your upheaval damage is not going to matter too much. Now the problem with what I've seen, again, I think Devastation Evoker would have liked to have at least half of the goodies of Augmentation Evoker, and same for Preservation Evoker would have liked the half of the goodies of like Augmentation Evoker. So it makes a bit like jealous the Devastation Evoker players, which I 100% would agree with, unfortunately for them. Hunters, Beast Mastery get like a 10% like reduced damage. Now it's 0% on Barb Shot, so effectively it's a huge buff between 15% increased damage in PvE and also in PvP, and also not reducing PvP damage in PvP. So it's going to be quite nasty, the Barb Shot damage. I think like it's, if you can compare it, I think it's like Season 1 tier set Barb Shot now. Because you had a tier set which was actually improving the damage of Barb Shot, Now it's going to be like a passive, like it will be like at all times. So I think it's going to be pretty good for BM. They kind of needed the damage. It felt like the damage is very low for BM. I think what they need is actually a huge rework on the talent trees, because you only have one build, and if that build doesn't work, nothing works. That's why Barb Shot is actually buffed, because there is no other way to play BM Hunter right now, which is not the most fun way to play. And also the CC being nerfed makes it like very one-sided how they play actually. So I wonder really what they are going to do. I think I said it multiple times, Dragonflight is in a beta, like for the next expansion. I think the next expansion will have a lot of reworks, like talent trees wise. It will be the final form of the talent trees, I would say, and they will just do a lot of tweaks, like new talents or like small talent changes, but they're not going to be full-on reworks, except if they're not done with reworks. Mages get a lot of buffs, which is actually very cool. I'm actually excited for seeing that. Master Shepherd's versatility now 12%. I think it's quite nice, but I don't think it's like super maintainable. But you can make it work. It's a huge increase though. Like 12% is like insane. You will have, if you're depending if you're playing with tier set or not, you could even have 52% versatility whenever you're polymorphing. It's actually quite huge. You're going to be very tanky if it's that the case. If you're playing without tier set and full on versatility, yeah. I think they do play with 4 set. So I think it will be more around like 38%, 40% depending on the versatility you have. I think it's quite nice if you actually can play with Master Shepherd as a PvP talent. Arcanosphere damage increased by 25%, so the burst potential is going to be quite nice, especially in 2s. If you can actually play with double Arcane Mage and double Arcanosphere, it can do some good damage. Arcane myself damage increased by 12%, so it's going to be also some good situational damage and rotational damage. Arcane Orb also increased by 30%, going to hurt us as well now. It will feel better, I think. Another Tempest damage increased by 150%. I think it's still not that much if you're actually comparing with the damage you have right now. But yeah, I guess it's worth to press sometimes versus rogues if they're running away. Although, like, Vanish gives a shield, so you will not take him out of stealth if you're playing versus sub-rogue. If they're playing with the spec talent from the spec, it gives a shield to Vanish. Fire get a burst and a buff towards Pyroblast, Fireblast, Phoenix Flames by 5% on Fireblast, 6% on Pyroblast, I can count 6% on Phoenix Flames, and Living Bomb by 300%. Now, if it's all of Living Bomb, only the dot proportion, not the eruption, because else they will write only eruption. But I think it's the whole Living Bomb actually like getting buffed. I think it might make everyone pick Living Bomb, and for a good reason. It's going to do some good damage, especially versus Cleaves, where you're going to set up a lot of Living Bombs, and then it's going to be pretty much like chain reacting, and it's going to do some good damage. It's still a rotational spell. You're not going to be killing people with Living Bombs, but it's going to be noticeable on the details, on the damage spread that you have as a spec. I think it's going to be quite nice to play with it. I'm actually very happy with it. I might play Fire Mage a bit more because of that change. Frost Mages get the nerf on the Ray of Frost spell, with Chiropathy being nerfed by 10%. I think it's a good change because it does a lot of damage. But the biggest change is actually like a buff towards Frostbolt by 50%, which is going to be feeling that Frostbolt is going to be back to Shadowlands-ish damage, I would say, for Frostbolt, which is a good thing. You can even play like with ice ice armor, I don't know what it's called, the PvP talent, where you're replacing your icy veins by the PvP talent that gives 30% increased damage to Frostbolt. So you might actually do nukes with your Frostbolt, so I'm actually excited to see that. And Snowdrift has a lower activation time, so you're going to cast it, put it on yourself, you're going to basically blink, maybe do a dragon breath or anything that actually can keep them in place, maybe a Nova, whatever, it doesn't change, and you get like a huge stun, AoE stun, so you can actually do a lot of damage with Ice Lances, like a bit of a kamikaze build, where you can actually make it work as a Frost Mage, especially with meaties, for example. Anyways, you have a nerf on Mind Trauma for Shadow Priest, which is a good thing. 9 times. It's still going to be is it the same or not? 2% times 9, it is 18, or 4% times 6 is 24. Or am I reading incorrectly? Was it 24% that he stole? I always thought it was like 12%. Or am I, maybe I'm reading incorrectly. I know, stacks up to, you could only steal 3 3 stacks per target, right? I think. Anyways, it's a nerf. I frankly do not remember. Like, I thought it was like stackable only 3 times on a target. And 3 times 4 would be 12%, which is correct. And then you could put like on another target also 3 times, and you would have 24%. But right now it's like 2%, and you can stack it 3 times probably again. So it will be some quite interesting haste that you're going to steal. Now, yeah, I mean 6% times 3 targets, I would say it's 18%. So it's still a nerf. I think it's a good thing. Maybe people will not play that anymore. I think it's still free haste that you steal, so you're going to still see Shadow Priest play that. From darkness comes light, so the healing from your flash heal is going to be gone, like divided by 2. So you're still going to play that, but it's not going to be like mind-blowing healing anymore. Windwalker gets nerfed on the critical strike damage bonuses by 50% on Rising Star. I think it's still a very little bonus though, so it's not going to be that impacting. You're still going to have to build towards that for getting the Feline Stomp, I think. So you have to take that anyways. Serenity now increases damage and healing by 10% instead of 15%, so you might maybe play Earth, Wind and Fire talent. I think there is a way you could actually play with that. I think the good thing is about Serenity is you're not like using any cheese, so you can actually like spam abilities. But we'll have to see how they're going to play. And Rolling Dragon Punch is actually increased by 40%. It's still like very little damage. I don't think people will like play with that. And you have to sacrifice a talent point, which is quite hard to do in this current spec. I think they still need a rework if you want to have multiple specs work, multiple builds work for Windwalkers. Elemental Shamans get, and also Enhancement Shaman get damage like on their backlash from Flame Shock. 40%. It's going to be noticeable, but it's not going to be the end all by any means. Restoration Shaman actually get nerfed on the region. I wonder if it's actually going to be like it's time, like it's region per 5, right? It's not region per second. So you have to do 2 times 5. So 800 times 5 is you're still going to have some good healing. I mean, like, so some good mana regions. 4k, and then here it's going to be 3.5k. So it's 500 mana you're going to lose every 5 seconds. You're still going to be one of the best, like, mana efficient healers, but I mean, it's, I don't know how I can put it, like, how it's worded. It feels like they don't want to like scare people off, because if you're saying 500 mana less, it's going to feel a lot more than 100 mana less for every second, right? So it's like a sales technique pretty much, like you're putting 4.99 instead of 5, right? So it feels like less than 5, while it's the same really. This is like the same as saying 500 mana less. It feels less impactful, but this is pretty much the same, right? So you will notice that you will have a bit more mana problems, but I think Restoration Shamans are still very efficient, so I think it's going to be alright. Warriors, finally some changes. I might play my warrior again. Slam doing nearly ×2 more damage in PvP, so it's going to be quite nice. I think it's going to be very fun to play with, and I will be testing a lot of like those slam damages. Arms, and also for Fury Warrior, by the way. And also for Protection Warrior. I don't know, there is a world where you could play something like that. But Fury Slam, I don't know. We will have to see. But Arm Slam with the talent chain, talent spec that you can actually go for Slam could work, to be honest. Overpower damage is now increased by 10%, so it's going to be doing more damage overpower. Again, it's a builder, and builder doing more damage is actually very cool for specs. Bladestorm doing 40% increased damage is quite nice, but again, we're using Bladestorm to actually like get out of roots, get out of like eventual stunts that they're going to do on us, and you Bladestorm at the same time, you actually cancel it. You're not really doing that for the damage except for Unhinged, but still I think Unhinged is so random, except if you have sweeping strikes. You're not doing that like all the time for damage. So 40% is going to be quite nice, but are you going to sit a whole Bladestorm whenever you have like the possibility to do a more strike at full effect or a Colossus Smash or whatever? Maybe it's going to be noticeable because you're going to do Colossus Smash maybe with an avatar, and then you're going to Bladestorm, you're going to do a lot of damage. But Unhinged is also nerfed by 40%, so it's going to be 60% effectiveness on more strike. So let's say more strike is like 50k, it's going to be doing like 30k. Pretty much, I think. Yeah, 30k. Or like a bit more than 30k. But so it will be doing a bit less damage, right? But if Bladestorm is doing some good damage, it might be worth it to actually sit the Bladestorm, but we'll have to see. 40% looks big, but is it big with the numbers that you can actually provide as an Arms Warrior? I don't know about that. More strike damage increased by 10%, so effectively it's not 60%, it's going to be a bit more since you'll get a more strike effect damage increase, but we will have to see how Bladestorm is going to work. But this is quite nice. You still don't play with Forset, to be honest, as an Arms Warrior, but you could, and it's going to be multiplicative again, so it's going to be quite nice, but of additive, I would say. But you will have to do a lot of testing. To be honest, I have soon the Forset because I play Fury. I might test it, but I still do not like the Forset from Arms because it breaks CC first and foremost, and also the damage is not that impressive, so we'll have to see. Fury Warrior though gets increase on Execute. It's going to be nice again. Execute is like an ability that should be very like much hurting as a Fury Warrior, but it's not really the case. So 15% is welcome. Also, it's actually doing a lot of damage, so 15% increase is going to be feeling nice. And Ravager is 30%, which is not really a spell you're taking in PvP. I try to make it work, but Bladestorm is still going to be the better version, and I kind of miss Bladestorm as a Fury Warrior, but it is what it is. Right now Arms Warrior, they have the goodies, and Fury Warrior a bit less. Hope they can actually do something about Fury Warrior to make it more flavorful, except like the bleed part that really I do not really like to play as a Fury Warrior. But anyways, this is the end of the patch note review. I made a lot of clear and concise opinions about everything. Again, if you agree with me, please do say it in the comments. If you do not agree, please do say it as well, so we can have a conversation. Please do not take corners. I think currently the meta will shape into something actually very nice. I think buffing the underlying specs, like for example, I think Arms and Fury are not really that great right now. So buffing them will actually push out Unholy Decays, and Unholy Decays is still going to feel nice. And I'm actually happy that they didn't touch Unholy Decays. I think the damage it looks very high because you're not like in habit to see Unholy Decays actually deal damage themselves and not the minions or the pad damage from dots. Right now you're dealing a lot of damage with Clouding Shadows, like Festering Wounds, your Death Coils, so it feels like more impactful and feels more hurting. But really, damage is actually kind of like, if you're watching it on a vacuum, the damage is like higher for Unholy Decays, but it feels a lot higher because it's done by themselves and not by the minions, for example. But the survivability is very like trash. So if you can actually go for the Unholy Decay and train the Unholy Decay, it makes them actually have to kite a lot, and they will actually miss out a lot of the damage. You should actually go for the Unholy Decay most of the time. But anyways, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. We do love PvP content. We do love everything around PvP, and I do love those kinds of patch notes, man. I think like Blizzard actually got like a 100% 10 out of 10 patch note here. There is like a few things missing, but like they said, they're going to change it on Monday with further details, and I look forward to that because AWC will be soon. It's August. And I hope like the meta will change, but also for us PvPers that are not playing the AWC, we would like to see a good meta as well. So I'm very happy for us to actually like see them change a few things that were needed. So thank you, Blizzard. Hopefully you do detail a bit more with explanations why Balance Druid, like what are your opinions about it, because there is nothing written on the notes, for example. But if you could do that a bit more, I think the patch note is like perfect right now. They need to still change a lot of like the rogue things, but it's a rework going on. Affliction Warlocks kind of need to change somehow, some way too. Demonology Warlock, Destruction Warlock. And a lot of those specs that there is like a apprentice, like where people should see them change in the future, but we will see if they're actually going to do that. But anyways, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Be sure to stay safe. We will catch you very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.